All right, everybody. My name's Robert, and I'm an addict.
Robert.
Let's open up this meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the we version of the Serenity Prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, so hopefully everybody's on cue with caught up to steps 1, 2, and 3, so we can start off on the inventory tonight. So admit complete defeat. We're screwed. There's nothing that we of ourselves can do anything about it. So we need some help. Admit the need for faith and sanity in the second step. And the hope is the rest of us are here recovering, so you can too. And then the third step decision that we're going to have and work on acquiring a working relationship with a power greater than ourselves. Okay. So we make this decision that we're going to do this. And the fourth step is largely about seeing what it is that's in the way. I've done 4 steps many different ways, from the life story version that turns into Moby Dick and bores your sponsor to death with a bunch of insignificant details at which most people don't give a shit about. And I've done the columns one that's been passed around since before we had a step working guide. They check boxes and write things that are smaller. And those aren't too bad because I think they get to the point. I love that in the step working guide, it says that it even says in it that there's many different ways to do this. And none of them are really going to hurt us. And I really don't think that so many of, I mean, the step working guide one, I worked it last year, and I found it very, very beneficial to be very in-depth at, almost 20 years clean and going back and doing a really nice house cleaning later on. But like my sponsor told me in the beginning was, dude, we're going to do it the simple way first. And if you find at 5 years clean, you feel like that, you haven't, that there's something maybe you missed in this spiritual process or that you needed a more thorough house cleaning, then we can go do one of these more in-depth ones. But, in the business of trying to help people that are new in the program save their damn life, let's get in and get you some tools that you can use right now to get your head around the corner. And that's what he explained to me. And I believe that, if it's not practical, it's not spiritual. And most people, when they're new, I used it for a lot of years. I used working step 4 in Narcotics Anonymous, which is the informational pamphlet number 10. It's kind of a tan pamphlet about this big. And most people that go through it, like me, I get a little lost. It's like so much information that I'm kind of like, well, what was it that I was really supposed to get out of all this? Besides the admission of my sins and going and confessing all my deep, dark, dirty secrets, I really didn't get a whole lot beyond that out of it. So with that being said, laying the stage for a little bit of that, I want to just read a little thing here out of the step working guide before we read step 4 out of the basic text and get going. Okay. So the 4th step is a method of learning about ourselves and as much a part of finding out our character assets as it is about identifying the exact nature of our wrongs. The inventory process is also an avenue to freedom. We have been prohibited from being free for so long, probably all our lives. Many of us have discovered as we work the 4th step that our problems didn't begin the first time we took drugs, but long before, when the seeds of addiction were actually planted. We may have felt isolated and different long before we took drugs. In fact, the way we felt and the forces that drove us are completely enmeshed in our addiction. It is our desire to change the way we felt and to subdue those forces that led us to take our first drug. Our inventory will lay and bear the unresolved pain and conflicts in our past so that we no longer are at their mercy. We'll have a choice. We will have achieved some measure of freedom. Just like that little introduction to it. So we're going to be on step 4, which is somewhere around 27. Everybody on page 27? All right, so I'm just going to read this before we get into the actual writing part, which we're going to get right on pretty quick here. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. The purpose of a searching and fearless moral inventory is to sort through the confusion and contradiction of our lives so that we can find out who we really are. We are starting a new way of life and need to be rid of the burdens that trap us, that controlled us, and prevented our growth. As we approach this step, most of us are afraid that there is a monster inside of us that, if released, will destroy us. This fear can cause us to put off our inventory or may even prevent us from taking this crucial step at all. We have found that fear is lack of faith, and we have found a loving personal God to whom we can turn. We no longer have to be afraid. We have been experts at self-deception and rationalization. By writing our inventory, we can overcome these obstacles. A written inventory will unlock parts of our subconscious that remain hidden when we simply think about or talk about who we are. Once it is all down on paper, it is much easier to see it and much harder to deny our true nature. Honest self-assessment is one of the keys to our new way of life. Let's face it, when we were not honest with ourselves. We are becoming honest with ourselves when we admit that addiction has defeated us and that we needed help. It took a long time to admit that we were beaten. We found that we do not recover physically, mentally, or spiritually overnight. Step 4 will help us towards our recovery. Most of us find that we are neither as terrible nor as wonderful as we supposed. We are surprised to find out that we have good points in our inventory. Anyone who has some time in the program and has worked this step will tell you that the 4th step was a turning point in their life. Some of us make the mistake of approaching the 4th step as if it was a confession of how horrible we are, what a bad person we have been. In this new way of life, a binge of emotional sorrow can be dangerous. This is not the purpose of the 4th step. We are trying to free ourselves from living in old, useless patterns. We take the 4th step to grow and to gain strength and insight. We may approach the 4th step in a number of ways. Again, it says the freedom of how we can do that. To have faith and courage to write a fearless inventory, steps 1, 2, and 3 are necessary preparation. It is advisable that before we start, we go over the first 3 steps with a sponsor. We get comfortable with our understanding of these steps. We allow ourselves the privilege of feeling good about who we are and what we are doing. We have been thrashing about for a long time and have gotten nowhere. Now we start the 4th step and let go of fear. We simply put it down on paper to the best of our present ability. We ain't going to be perfect at this thing. We must be done with the past, not cling to it. We want to look our past in the face and see it for what it really was and release it so we can live today. The past for most of us has been a ghost in the closet. We've been afraid to open that closet for fear of what that ghost may do to us. Fear, false evidence appearing real. We do not have to look at the past alone. Our wills and our lives are now in the hands of our higher power. God is with us when we're doing this. Writing a thorough and honest inventory seemed impossible. It was, as long as we were operating under our own power. We take a few quiet moments before writing and ask for the strength to be fearless and thorough, and that God show us what we need to see to stay clean. In step 4, we begin to get in touch with ourselves. We write about our liabilities such as guilt, shame, remorse, self-pity, resentment, anger, depression, frustration, confusion, loneliness, anxiety, betrayal, hopelessness, failure, fear, and denial. We write about the things that bother us here and now. We have a tendency to think negatively, not me. So putting it on paper gives us a chance to look more positively at what is happening. Assets must also be considered if we expect to get an accurate, complete picture of ourselves. This is very difficult for most of us because it is hard to accept that we have good qualities. Now, in my 4th step, we got to the asset thing, and I was like, I could see that every asset that I possessed, I also used for forces of evil. I could be kind and considerate, but it always had a hook in it. It wasn't selfless by any means. If I could be really, really nice and kind and considerate to my dope man, I could be honorable and integrable when I got to go see the judge. I can put on that image out to those kind of people. So I was kind of like, when it came to the assets part, I just had to kind of touch on those things that I knew I had those qualities, but it was just so maybe I could do it in a little bit more pure sense later on. I just wanted to bring that up. However, we all have assets, many of them newly found in the program, such as being clean, open-mindedness, God awareness, honesty with others, acceptance, positive action, sharing, willingness, courage, faith, caring, gratitude, kindness, and generosity. So you got a list right there that you can kind of just check some of those off on your assets later on if you like. That's a good reference place. Also, our inventories usually include material on relationships. We review our past performance and our present behavior, see what we want to keep and what we want to discard. No one is going to force us to give up our misery. This step has the reputation of being difficult. In reality, it is quite simple. We just write it down. We survived it. We lived through it once. Now we're just putting the facts down on paper to the best of our ability as we know them to be true. We write our inventory without considering the fifth step. We work step 4 as if there were no step 5. We can write alone or near other people. Whatever is more comfortable to the writer is fine. We can write as long or short as needed. Someone with experience can help. The important thing is that we write a moral inventory. If the word moral bothers us, we can call it a positive negative inventory. The way we write an inventory is to write it. Thinking about an inventory, talking about it, theorizing about the inventory will not get it written. Dragging it out for long periods of time, it's just procrastination. Procrastination is just, it's murderous here. Step three is one of those things that, really important, huh? Tell her I said hi. I'm sure it's a her. You wouldn't be running out here like that. But anyway, have a nice time. So anyway, procrastination is one of the worst things. And we're going to do some writing right in here. So this isn't going to be a procrastination thing for most of us. So that's not a big deal. But we make a big deal out of stuff because we really just don't need, most of us just because we don't know what it is that we're doing. So anyway, we sit down with a notebook, we ask for guidance, pick up our pen, and start writing. Anything that we think about is inventory material. When we realize how little we have to lose and how much we have to gain, we begin this step. The basic rule of thumb is that we can write too little, yet we can never write too much. And I got to stop right there again, too, because when I started my resentments, the first resentment I started was with my father. And so I wrote that first resentment out, and I called Medi up. I said, hey, man, I want to go over this thing with you right now because I want to make sure before I go doing the rest of them that I'm on the right track with all this kind of stuff. And I took it to him, man, and I had like 3 or 4 pages of all the little things that I was resentful at my father for. And my father was pretty much a non-factor in my life. He was a deadbeat, alcoholic, Skid Row alcoholic, in and out of prison and Skid Row. But he was the man that I blamed for most of all my problems and defects. If I'd had a father that loved me and been around and treated me better, I would have been a better human being. And so most of my life growing up, he was my scapegoat. Of him and God were my 2 favorite things to blame for why I was and what I became what I was. And so I laid this all out to Medi, and he's like, look, dude, get to the point. What is it that you're resentful of? Well, he abandoned me. He wasn't there for me. He didn't contribute anything financially to my life. I mean, literally, I could consolidate it into about 3 sentences. Yeah. And he says, well, then say 3 sentences. We're not turning this into a life project. We get it. I mean, it's not a venting session to throw out all the stuff. So get to the point of what it is, what the cause was, and then move on, which we're going to get into in the next one. So I think sometimes we can get into too much, and by reliving every little play by play of every little thing and breaking out that magnifying glass of really looking out, to me, that's like just, do we really need to stick the blade back into the wound and just, twist the knife on this thing? Or are we just going to state the facts as they are? And that's what we did. So anyway, the inventory will fit the individual. Perhaps this seems painful or difficult or painful. It may appear impossible. We may fear that being in touch with our feelings will trigger an overwhelming chain reaction of pain and panic. We may feel like avoiding an inventory because of the fear of failure. Not going to do it right anyway, so why bother? We just do the best we can. God works with that. When we ignore our feelings, the tension becomes too much for us. The fear of impending doom is so great that it overrides our fear of failure, and we get her done. The inventory becomes a relief because the pain of doing it is less than the pain of not doing it. We learn that pain can be a motivating factor in recovery. Thus, facing it becomes unavoidable. Every topic at step meetings seems to be on the 4-step or doing a daily inventory. Through the inventory process, we're able to deal with all the things that can build up. The more we live our program, the more God seems to put us in positions where issues surface. When issues surface, we write about them. We begin enjoying our recovery because we have a way to resolve shame, guilt, or resentment. The stress once trapped inside of us is released. Writing will lift the lid off our pressure cooker. We decide whether we want to serve it up, put the lid back on it, or throw it out. We no longer have to stew in it and wallow in it the rest of our lives. We sit down with a pen and paper and we ask for God's help in revealing the defects that are causing us pain and suffering. We pray for the courage to be fearless and thorough, and that this inventory may help us put our lives in order. When we pray and take action, it always goes better for us. And that's not just with the 4-step. We are not going to be perfect. If we were perfect, we would not be human. The important thing is that we do our best. We use the tools available to us, and we develop the ability to survive our emotions. We do not want to lose any of what we have gained. We want to continue in the program. It is our experience that no matter how searching or thorough, no inventory is of any lasting effect unless it is promptly followed by an equally thorough 5th step. So now we're going to go over those papers that we handed out and the notebooks. We can go ahead and break out your notebooks in those resentment pages and get that pen ready. Make sure it works. Do a little scribbly line. At the top of the page, at the top of page 1, you're going to write resentments on it. That's the start of it, and that's the heading of the handout that we have to start this thing up. And you're going to leave yourself.
I don't have that one. I have section guilt.
So you only have one piece of paper and not 2.
Yeah, one piece of paper.
Okay, so we didn't get them handed out properly. So no, don't grab those.
Don't grab these.
Does everybody have? All right, so here is, and all we need is the one that says resentments on it, the opposite side of the fears for tonight. But you should have the other one that has the selfishness, and I'm going to pass this back. Pass that back over there to.
You said on our notebooks, write resentments.
On the top, on the very top of page 1 in your notebook, you're going to write resentments. Just that's the heading. That's what we start off with, is the resentments. Okay. So that's going to be the start of that part, and then I wanted to read this little thing here out of the step working guide that leads right into the resentments, because it starts it off really nice. It says resentments. We have resentments when we refeel old feelings, when we are unable to let go, when we cannot forgive and forget something that has upset us. We list our resentments in the 4-step for a number of reasons. First, doing so will help us let go of old anger that is affecting our lives today. Second, exploring our resentments will help us identify the ways in which we set ourselves up to be disappointed in others. Expectations are premeditated resentments, especially when our expectations are too high. Finally, making a list of our resentments will reveal our patterns that kept us trapped in a cycle of anger or self-pity or both. So, we got the very top of that question. First question is going to be the first number 1. Now you can just lay the handout sheet, just put it right next to the notebook, and you got resentments on the top. And then the very first question is, name the person, place, thing, or institution or reason, thing that you resent. And the second question, you're going to put a quick little line or 2 of why you resent them. The justice system didn't treat me fairly. Daddy didn't love me enough, wasn't there enough for me. Just a quick. It doesn't have to be a long, in-depth thing, just like I was talking about for my dad. I resent my dad because he was a deadbeat dad that wasn't there for me, and I felt abandoned. I felt betrayed that he chose another family to go play house with instead of being part of my life. So that's what I wrote on that. So then number 3, what was affected? Everybody following me so far? Okay. So the next thing is, after we do that, we're going to say what was affected for me? My finances, my romance, my image, societal place in society, my physical, spiritually, or emotionally. Which one of those areas or multiple of those areas was affected? Did it hit my pocketbook? Yeah, I didn't have money. I mean, Dad would have been paying some child support. I had a few more extra ducks because my mom told me I could keep whatever I could get out of the guy, and I never got anything out of the guy. So, it was kind of like I could have had some more things, which I really liked things, and so that was an area that hit me. My emotional support, I didn't feel like Dad really loved me or cared about me because he was never there. So that affected me emotionally. It affected my self-esteem. Why was somebody else? How could you not love your own son? I mean, what was wrong with me so bad? I couldn't see his side of it. Being young, I could only see how it affected me. It wasn't until years later in the inventory process that I identified, his side, or a potential of what his side was, because I wasn't looking to be understanding. I was just resentful that he wasn't there, and that's all I could see. So that would be that quick little answer to that question. Then number 4, what was my part in the resentment? Did I feed the resentment or retaliate in any way? I really never had the power to retaliate against my father until he came knocking on my door when my kids were almost raised and decided he wanted to play grandpa all of a sudden. So when he showed up to my doorstep and he wanted to be a part of my kid's life, then it was my turn to shit in his mess kit. I made it very unbearable to him. I made it very, very clear and set really high standards. I'm like, if you're going to be a part of my kid's life, you're going to take all 3 of my kids. I had 2 step boys that he had no real interest in. And then I had my daughter. And I was like, you're going to treat every one of them the same. If you're going to send birthday cards, Christmas cards, you're going to send them to each and every one of them. And they better be of equal value. I mean, I said, I did set the bar really high for a man that hadn't been in their lives this whole time. I set the bar really high, like at a level where I knew there was no way he was going to do it. And he did exactly what I thought he was going to do. That was late summer when that happened, and I think they got Christmas cards that year, and we didn't hear from him again until I got clean several years later. About 3 years after that, the tables turned.
Asking him to spell something that wasn't supposed to talk to me.
And you're going to be in your own writing, so you don't have to spell it right. You just, so long as you can read it yourself. Although every once in a while I have to ask my wife, what did I write? Yeah. When we were writing these forms up, I had to ask my wife. I was like, what did I write here? I couldn't even read it. She deciphered it for me. So I understand. I got really bad writing. So anyway, that was my part in the resentment later on, right? That was how I retaliated. It was like, that was my little, I got to kick him in the balls back for him not being there. And I thought I was very justified in it. And I was just kind of like, okay, good riddance, no problem. Okay. So I was 35 years old when I did that, and still in active addiction. And I get clean at 38 years old. And after getting a little ways to the steps, and my sponsor was like, hey, you hardly ever mentioned your dad in much of your 4th step, other than the short line, because he didn't let me tell him the long version. I just told him the short version. And so we didn't really talk much more about him after I did that 5th step. But winter time came around, and I was in the middle of my 9th step amends, and he was like, what's up with your dad? And he said, he's still alive or is he dead? And I said, no, he's still alive. He's in Colorado, and if he died tomorrow, I wouldn't fly back there to piss on his grave. That was exactly my statement to him when we walked out of the doors of this very building. And he says, dude, you better go clean that shit up. He's still alive. You got a chance to make this thing right, and you don't want to have that on you, that you didn't take the opportunity to make it right. And he had to remind me that I was willing to go to any lengths for my recovery. And luckily I was still, I don't even think I was about maybe 6 months old, 7 months clean at that time. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I will. And I added him onto my list of amends to be made. And I started calling him. And that's a whole different thing. We'll get to the 9th step thing anyway, because this right here was just the resentment thing. So we'll pick up that page when I get to step 8 and 9. But that was what I did right then, as I retaliated that way to him. So that was my part on it. I made the bar really high, unachievable for him. He disappeared into the sunset. What action should I take? How should I view this offender now? Okay, so now that I'm on this spiritual path, how am I gonna view my father is that I need to get to the understanding place that he was an active alcoholic my whole life. That he has the same exact disease that I in fact have. And I want understanding, I want grace, I want forgiveness for all the stuff that I've done. And so for me, I had to kind of look to the other side that he was a sick human being. And I was holding him to standards much higher than a person that had his sickness should have been held to. So me looking at it on my side of the side, I had to own that that perhaps he was a sick human being, which he definitely was. And my father was it was obviously he had become a wet brain alcoholic. And that's the guys that drank too long and lose a few things. He blamed it on Agent Orange in Vietnam, but, yeah. He also told me he was a special forces guy too. And I looked it up. He never was any of those things. He was just, a regular little grunt that, but he lied to me about a bunch of little things that I found out later on that didn't go either way. He was just, again, a sick human being, trying to get by. And, can we shut these phones off? Because I'm really getting tired of hearing them. Thanks. We don't need to have hepatic feed going off during the meeting anyway. All right, so that's kind of the end side of the resentments is our part in this resentment thing is not hanging on to past things and continuing the hurt. So what we're supposed to be doing on this last line is crossing a bridge from resentment, anger, hate, and disgust with some people to understanding, love, tolerance, and forgiveness, which is the same thing that we're going to be seeking later on in the steps. And not only that, a big point of this was that before I even got to my 4th step, Mehdi told me, again, because I was blowing off, I was always pissed off at something. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions and I'd just been pissed off for so long. That's all I knew was anger. You hurt my feelings. I was angry. I want to beat you up. That was just my reaction to almost everything. So I didn't know what I was feeling when I was clean. I didn't know what it felt to be like betrayed. It was like, no, I just wanted to punch people because that's what I did. And, he says, look, the love of God that you need to stay clean and the anger and the hate that you possess cannot live in the same house. Can't happen. So if you're going to make this decision to live a spiritual way of life, you got to cut this shit loose. I do not have the luxury to hang on to hate and anger anymore. And for me, hate and anger was something I fed. It was like a drug for me. I loved anger and rage, to build the cases on whoever pissed me off and crank up the angry white boy music and think of every bad thing any other human being had ever done to me and funnel vision on whoever it was that pissed me off at the moment. That was just what I did, and I fed on that kind of stuff. And when he told me that, I immediately stopped feeding my anger that way. I was like, oh, I didn't realize, and that's kind of one of the beginning things that we're trying to find out in this inventory. What are the things that are getting in the way of us having a good working relationship with the higher power? My anger and my rage, my resentment. Like it says in the triangle of self-obsession information pamphlet we have, resentment, anger, and fear. That triangle of thing that we get trapped into, our total selfishness and how everything is about us, and we take everything so damn personal and directly. I can't look at my own father as being a sick human being and give him any kind of compassion and cut him off the hook, when he's obviously been homeless. He had a bad life, man. He didn't have it very good, but I was angry because he wasn't able to be there for me. I couldn't see, that really, man, he was hurting himself way more than he was hurting me. And in reality, he was probably doing me a favor by staying the hell out of my life, as bad as he was off, you know? And maybe that was the way he did look at it. I don't know. I can't read his mind. But I do know now that I don't have any unfinished business with him. He just passed last year. And I found out like 6 months after he died, so I couldn't fly back to his funeral. I probably would have, you know. I don't guarantee that I would have, but I would have given it serious thought, you know. If there wasn't some serious stuff going on with my house that I had to be there to build to make sure something happened, if it wasn't really bad. Selfishly, it could have been a coin toss in the end, because I did give it a good go to try to make a decent relationship with him. And in the end, that ship had already sailed. It just wasn't going to happen for us anymore. We did finally try to make it work. So that's number one, resentment. So the suggestion on this is we want to do 5 resentments tonight. So 1 page for each resentment. So turn the page and do the next resentment, whatever your next offender is. Then the mantra of this is that if we can process our top 5 worst people that we have, or things that we have resentments with, that by the time we get past the top 5, we can probably cast pretty much blanket forgiveness and understanding to the rest of the offenders. And if we're still having trouble with other people, we can take them through this process too. But it's a really simple thing that this is essentially what it is. We're acknowledging the resentment, the need to let it go, that it's getting in the way of our relationship. And not only that, my relationship with me, you know, I mean, they say, you know, resentment is the poison we take that only hurts us, you know. I mean, it's not doing anything productive, you know. And it is getting warm in there.
Yeah.
Can we live with the fan, Adam? Everybody hold your papers. You got a lot of hot air pumping around here. Mostly out of me. Wish that thing had a speed setting, but it ain't getting the fan. So watch your papers. A little help. Most people, right off the bat, is usually mom, dad, God, ourselves. That's usually a quick 4 for most of us. I mean, yeah.
I have a lot of them.
And another good test too is think of the people that you've had issues with in the years, and if you saw them first before they saw you in the grocery store, is your peace level with them where you'd want to go up and greet them with love and compassion and, hey, how you doing? Or would it be, holy shit, I don't want them to see me and I'm going to duck around the corner, or I want to go, you know, get out there to their car and slash their tires while they're in the store, you know, some little thoughts like that. I see a lot of people, you know, we're here right now, they're not in our face, but like even my mom, you know, I mean, I've processed my resentments with my mom several times over the years through the steps. And there's still some things that some memories of the past that she can bring up at inconvenient times when there's a bunch of people in a room that will embarrass the hell out of me. And I'll be like, you know, grind my teeth because she brings something up. So it tells me that there's still a little hurt over it. And just because it's not gone all the way doesn't mean that there's no more worth in throwing it through the process. So just because I've already taken all those resentments, like if the resentments you've already done are some that we've already worked in a 4th and a 5th step through before, and you think they're done, because I've heard schools of thought that once we forgive something, we're done with it. You do it one time and that's it. You just don't ever pick it back up again. But if for some reason there's something in our heart that still hurts from it and isn't healed up from it, the whole practice of looking at it, just like it says in the reading in the basic text, writing it down, facing it for what it is, and seeing the absolute truth of what it is, and doing the quick little score of what my part was of and where I should be on it is where I need to be on it, you know. And if you have more than 5, you know, I think I had, if I remember right, my first one was like 9. I think I had 9. Had 9. And I was an only child. If I'd had brothers and sisters, there would have been a whole lot more, you know. So anybody resent the disease of addiction that we got it? Yeah. I resented God because he gave me this horrid disease. How dare he? Why would he give me such a bad thing? You love me, you favor me, and you give me this disease. Fuck you. That was my attitude, No. But now I could run that same resentment through here, right? And I can see through on my part, and I can take it to the next level, and I can see that without this disease of addiction, there is nothing out there on the planet that's going to kick my ass to the degree necessary to make me have a working relationship with God. There is nothing out there that would have took me by the balls and beat me into the gutter where I'd be like, God, whatever you want. I can't think. Girls weren't going to do it. Women weren't going to do it. Money wasn't going to do it. Nothing else was going to do this. This is the only thing, the disease of addiction, powerful enough to beat me into submission where I would surrender to my higher power. I can't think of anything else. You can tell me I'm dying of cancer. I don't think that would have done it for me. I don't think so, because I'd see the end in sight. Living in active addiction and that suicide on the installment plan, living in misery and living to survive each and every day and hating myself for doing what I did. I think it was all necessary stuff for me to get to this thing. I really believe if I hadn't have gotten the monkey of the disease of addiction, I would have been exactly like Ebenezer Scrooge. I would have been the guy that got the money with the most toys and couldn't get enough. And I would have gladly kicked the kids out of the orphanage New Year's Eve to have my New Year's Eve party. That's how selfish I was. So without having this monkey on my back to make me come in here, to make me work the steps, to make me come closer to God, I'm not developing a working relationship with God. So when I hear people say that they're grateful recovering addicts, that's the way I like to hear that. Most people, I don't even think they're saying that they're just grateful that they're clean is what most people are meaning, right? When they're saying I'm a grateful recovering addict, right? I'm saying that out of the sense that I'm happy to be clean. I'm grateful I got this disease because it drove me to having a working relationship with God that I can do business with. Nothing else. And I know that it's my recovery is directly related and contingent upon the maintenance of my spiritual program. If I start screwing this thing off, this makes me stay on the path. Without it, I could just come in and get my crap together a little bit and be on my merry way and back to being Scrooge and money, property, prestige, and chasing white, bright, shiny shit as far as the source of my happiness out there. This disease makes me make sure that this hole is taken care of. Because if this hole starts being empty and desolate, there's only one thing besides God that's going to fill it. And that's the dope. And I know it. And I know even at this stage of my disease that the ease and comfort the drugs are going to provide me are going to be very short-lived before I'm in short order just as bad or worse as I was before I came in here in the first place. And I know that from experience of being in and out of the rooms. That's the way it is. I'm not going to be able to pick up the old days and be able to ride that. If I was guaranteed for 10 or 15 years that I could maybe ride this out to the end of the sunset, it might be tempting, but I know if I pick up, I'm going to be right back to that state of mind, that hopelessness, that hating myself, especially now having it as good as I've got it, to turn around and spit in God's face and flush this stuff down the toilet. So that all kind of feeds getting on the other side and not being resentful towards God, crossing that bridge, understanding and forgiveness, being grateful that I got it the way I got, Everybody got the top 5 written down? Or close? How you doing, Brian?
6.
You got 3? You probably got 3 with one woman.
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
Right. I mean, it does take a little bit to think, you go back from, go back to the school kids calling me fatso and chubby when I was growing up, and all the kids I didn't even get to none of that stuff in my resentments. The judge that convicted me of sales and possession of drugs when I was a juvenile, when they didn't have any real proof, just hearsay stuff. I had a resentment at one time against the judge, but no other resentments. Okay, so let's.
You can always leave room.
I mean, people, a resentment for each page. If you leave a couple of pages and you want to come back to some more of that during the week, feel free to do that. So, however much, notebook paper is cheap. So you leave 8 or 9 pages, a page for each resentment, and you want to write some more on it during the week and pick up a few more resentments and get through it a little bit more. You may think of more by the time you go home. By tomorrow, you start chewing on a little bit more. It's a very simple process, and I think it's direct and to the point. Of what the exact nature is, what my part was, and when I take a good look at it, it makes sense. So the next thing that stands in our way of a working relationship with a higher power in the world is fears. So I'm going to read this. It's a couple paragraphs here in the Step Working Guide, and it talks about fears a little bit. It says, if we could look at the disease of addiction, or if we could look at the disease of addiction stripped of its primary symptoms, that is apart from the drug use or other compulsive behavior, and without its most obvious characteristics, we would find a swamp of self-centered fear. We're afraid of being hurt, or maybe just of having to feel too intensely, right? I hate that I feel so intensely. Anybody else identify with that? Ding, 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 ding. I fear my feelings and emotions. I feel them so deeply. They're so painful. And God forbid anybody hurt my little feelings and upset King Baby. So we live in sort of a half a life, going through the motions of living, but never fully being alive. We're afraid of everything that might make us feel, so we isolate and withdraw. People are going to hurt my feelings. I don't want any friends. They're going to just hurt my feelings and disappoint me and betray me. And it's just easier to be a hermit, right? Isolation became my friend. We are afraid that people won't like us, so we use drugs to be more comfortable with ourselves. We're afraid we'll get caught at something and have to pay the price, so we lie or cheat or hurt others to protect ourselves. We're afraid of being alone, so we use and exploit others to avoid feeling lonely or rejected or abandoned. We're afraid we won't have enough of anything, so we selfishly pursue what we want, not caring about the harm we cause in the process. Sometimes if we gain things we care about in recovery, we're afraid we'll lose what we have, and so we begin compromising our principles to protect it. Go back to that lying, cheating, and stealing to make our ways when God's provided for us all these years, and we think we got to go back to old ways. Self-centered, self-seeking fear, we need to uproot it so it no longer has the power to destroy us. So you can tie them into, God forbid, the 7 deadly sins, and they all come to those fears. But on that thing again, you're going to have put at the top of the page fears and insecurities, where we don't think we're secure on things, and that's what the fears kind of stem from. So number 1, what are my top 5 fears? Complete 1 page for each fear. So number 1, what's my top 5 fear? We just touched on one. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to stay clean the rest of my life, or I'm not going to be able to get recovery, right? I'm going to do all this work, make amends, pay back money I don't want to give away, and all this other stuff to make these amends. And then I'm going to go out and screw it all off anyway. So I'm going to do all this good hokey got milk kind of stuff that you guys are talking to me about doing. And then I'm just going to go, wish I still had that money. I could have bought a lot of dope with that money I made amends with and stuff like that. But my fear of not being able to stay clean. That was one of my fears on my original.
I don't want to turn. This phone will not turn off. I'm sorry.
You know, it has 2 buttons that you press and it goes dead.
I've been trying for. Will not go out.
Believe us.
Seriously, I do not. takes a picture.
Next week we leave that thing in your car. Because she ain't going away. So anyway, top 5 fears. That was one of my big ones. You know, I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm only to screw it all off again. You know, and so you take that fear through the process. Why do I have this fear? Because my track record shows that I don't stay clean. You know, other people come and stay clean from their very first meeting and never relapse. And here I was 38 years old, and I'd been to meetings in and out since I was 15 years old, and every time eventually screwed it off one way or another. So what's going to make this time even different than all the other times before? That's why I have that fear, is all that proof, all that evidence staring me in the face. So that's number 2. I got plenty of evidence. So you can write that however you'd want to. I think we probably all pretty much have that fear, be my guess. What area of life is affected by this fear? My ambition, my self-esteem, material, sex life, social status. Every area of life is affected by my drug addiction. Nothing is left unscathed. So that's an easy list to add. How am I selfish and self-seeking in this fear? Again, I'm still only thinking about how it's affecting me, right? I'm still mostly scared. All right, thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. And talk to her while he's out to the car.
I'll call you back.
Come on, baby, I'll be over there in 15 minutes. This fucker's talking way too long. I'm telling you. No, don't call that other dude. I'll be there in a minute. Right. All right. So how am I selfish and self-seeking in this fear? I mean, predominantly, I'm not even thinking about how bad my relapse is going to affect my family, my wife, my kids, anybody. The ripple effect of what I don't ever think about that stuff in the relapse. Never did. Never. You know, I couldn't even think past, you know, I could play the tape back through and know that I was going to wind up getting locked up if I got loaded again. I knew that things were going to turn crappy again. But I was so empty inside, I didn't care. You know, I didn't care. It was either eat a bullet or pick up. That was kind of how it was for me on a few of the relapses that I had, you know. And then sometimes it's not even that subtle. But like it says and we were just reading it last night in Recovery and Relapse in the basic text that says we've never seen a person get loaded and relapse that was working the program 100%. How it's worded different, but that's exactly what it says in there. So I don't have anything to fear as long as I know I'm doing my A game. If I'm doing all the stuff that I'm supposed to be doing, I'm working my steps, I'm praying in the morning, I'm working with other guys, I'm going to meetings regularly, I've got a service commitment, I've worked the steps, I've made amends, I've cleaned up the wreckage of my past, when I follow through with the rest of this process, I've got nothing to fear except once I stop doing the process. And then once I stop doing the process, that fear is kind of a healthy fear. You know, because that fear coming back telling me it's kind of like guilt telling us that we're doing something wrong. You know, I mean, guilt is a natural God-given feeling that is usually trying to tell us to stop doing what we're doing. You know, and we usually feel better when we stop doing what we're doing, or we continue to feel guilty if we keep doing it. And the selfish, self-seeking part, like I said, that's you can take that question either way. You know, that is all still about me. And number 5, where do I go from here? Building the faith and trust in my higher power's will for me. Number 5. So how do we answer that question? So pretty much like I just got done saying anyway, I answered this question before on step 4. You know, as long as I'm doing my part, I know that God is going to do his part. It's me expecting God to do more than his fair share of the work that I should be afraid of, you know. So I know without a shadow of doubt, after years and years of working the program, that as long as I am looking forward to the consequences of my recovery, because I know I'm putting good work in, then I know I'm safe. The minute I'm thinking, how little can I get by? Can I drop her down to 2 meetings a week? Can I drop it down to 3 meetings a week? Can I just go to 1 or 2 here or there? I don't need a service commitment. Fuck these guys. I don't got to answer that phone or return that text or participate in recovery with other people. I mean, once I start seeing those things, then there should be red light indicators all over the place for me, And the problem is that, like I talked about in recovery and relapse, is most of us stop doing those 1 or more things long before we realize that it's too late. That most of us kind of blot it out. We rationalize, we justify that we need to work harder to make more money to make up for this and that, or I'm going to just spend time with the family, or whatever trivial excuse. I mean, really, there is no rational reason for me not to participate in my recovery. Every excuse that my brain has for me to not be an active part of my recovery is self-deception, is part of my disease trying to separate me from you. This is not too much work. I'm sorry. This is way easier to do what we're doing here tonight for the privilege and honor to be able to live the quality of life that we have today. And the benefits of what it pays for us to live this way far exceed the couple hours a night here and there. It's just when our head twisted around and that selfishness, that's the thing that we have to be most afraid of, is the selfishness on this kind of stuff. But as long as I'm willing to do what my higher power has laid out for me to do, I have the disease of addiction, right? I believe God gave me this disease. I think I was born with it right out of the box. All right? No other excuse for it. It wasn't learned behavior. It wasn't taught behavior. This was me. I mean, I had addictive personality, just like the basic text says. Before I ever picked up my first drug, I was addicted to anything that gave me pleasure and gratification. I did it till there was no more fun to be gotten out of it. And then I move on to the next obsession. And that has been my life story. So God-given disease, God-given treatment. For me to say I don't need you guys anymore is saying God did his job wrong. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm here. It's working really, really well. I see other people that it's working really, really well for. And as long as I stay committed and connected, I got nothing to worry about except for self-deception. This thing is the thing I fear the most. And I go around with Mehdi over this often. He says, fear in any form is unhealthy. I've got a healthy fear and respect for what my thinking can do to me. My thinking on any given day to turn you guys I can build a case against this whole damn room by walking out here tonight and easily have my feelings hurt and King Baby takes over and when. And I mean, it's crazy how easy my head can flip that switch. And I'm scared to death of letting that thing have that much power. And that's why I stay so close to God in my recovery, because I know that it's really only God that gives me that sanity. Like it says in the second step, faith and sanity, that's where that stuff comes from. It doesn't happen automatically for this guy. I have to put in the work to maintain faith and sanity. I have to maintain this daily reprieve. And I don't build up the savings account and be able to coast for the rest of my life. I really don't believe it. Some people don't have the monkey as big as I do. I'm sorry. Some people don't have as big of addiction. I believe that the disease of addiction is a sliding kind of scale. Some people can get by with a couple of meetings a week and be soccer mom or whatever and just, not put a whole bunch of stuff into it. And then you have people, and we all have to answer this question, are you a real addict? Are you a hardcore dope fiend? Were you hope to die dope fiend or not? Were you that guy where you could not stop no matter how hard you tried? That's what I was. So I know I have to stay plugged into this. So that's one of the fears and insecurities. Another good fear is dying alone. What happens? My wife dies, kids leaves. I'm all by myself. Who's going to wipe my butt and roll me over so I don't get bed sores? Cedric, you want to be there for me? I hope so. All right. I know you answer your phone, so that's a good thing. We're getting on that. So I hope. That's a good financial insecurity. That drives us too. Marital status, losing our wives. Our kids loving us. Tell them hi for me, man.
Oh, well.
Sally. Service commitments. So, but anyway, anybody have a problem coming up with 5 fears? No, nobody had a problem coming up with 5. Pretty easy to come up with 5. Top 5 is the big part. Again, what have we've all survived 100% of everything life has to offer us out there so far to date, and I don't see any young bucks in here. Except for the little boy with a clean-shaven face over there. Are you 9 or 10 years old, Bradley? How old are you now? You're 29. You're 29 years. I bet you your yearbook picture. Well, you don't have one of those because you weren't there anyway. Right. But we've all, really, the evidence on fear. You think about all the little things and how scared we are of so many little things that drives us to do what we do. And the truth of the matter is we've all survived way worse than any of this stuff that we got going on in our lives today. And we're still here. No matter how bad it was looking at one point or another, we've gotten through all those things. So now that we're, trying to work in cooperation with a higher power instead of fighting a higher power every inch of the way, and we're trying to live in God's will, and we're trying to give back to God and God's kids and cooperate and live this new way of life, I really don't have anything to fear as long as I stick close to God and you guys. I started separating me from you guys because you guys are the ones that helped me get a working relationship with God. I couldn't do business with God before the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. This is what made it all work for me. So everybody's got their list, got your 5 things done. So we got like 1 hour in right now. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and knock out this selfishness one real quick, since we're really good and ahead of time. Because then that way next week we can do the last little part in step 5, and next week kind of blend a little bit of step 5 with the tail end of step 4. Kind of makes it nicer too, because we can save the shame and guilt section for the last little bit of writing, so it can go straight to the 5th step afterwards. And I really didn't outline anything specific in the step working guide on the selfishness, but it is one of the biggest roots of what gets in the way of me and God cooperating and working together. I want what I want when I want it. I want it my way, and I want it right now. And that's what my selfishness does. I don't know how to. I don't like no. I don't like maybe. I don't like wait. I want to get the cookie right now. So, what are the biggest areas that I'm selfish in? Again, right back to the top 5 things. What are my top 5 areas of selfishness in my life? What area of life do we feel like we need to spend more time with? Or what are we the least flexible with? And it can be past tense too stuff. Some of the stuff that, remember, we're also trying to look at the stuff for part of our active addiction too. If that was, some of the stuff because some of this stuff applies into the 9th step later on for making amends for being a selfish, self-centered, arrogant, condescending, least sympathetic human being my wife knows. Kind of pretty much that's the sum of it. That's what that was my title. In every area. It's crazy how I had to be right knowing I was wrong. Insistence, not wanting to boost other people up. So what area was I, top 5 areas of selfishness in my life? I'd say today my time is probably my most selfish area. Time, getting older, time is very, very important. Believe me, I every hour, I mean, just like doing this meeting, it's like chiseling it out. Like, how do I make this happen? You know, do I really want to do it? You know, and you know, sometimes it doesn't sound like fun, but it's a worthwhile cause. And I'll tell you what, man, it seems like sometimes when I take the push to stay that extra little bit in the parking lot when I'm really tired at night, when somebody's bus is late and I really don't want to be sitting out there at 9:00 at night on an evening at the wonderful world famous Thai club. You know, it's easy for me now to, I mean, dude, I used to be one of those, the meeting was over, I'm gone. I ain't got time, you know, room full of newcomers in here whining and moaning and groaning. We say they're the most important people in the world, and door opens, man, and I'm a bolt to the door, you know. Quick little hug if you can stop me down quick enough is the way it used to be, you know. And 99% of the time when I was that way, what was I doing when I got home? Sitting on my ass watching TV.
I can't wait.
Right? Really. I mean, but what that also comes back to fear of exchange with people, fear of talking to people, fear of the social stuff. I mean, man, I love my quiet time. Don't get me wrong. I love my quiet time. But we look down here, especially down here in, you know, down by Vegas Stronger and down here at the Thai Club. We got all these people here that are dying for the message that we possess, because people aren't stopping to take the time to talk to them, to give it to them, you know, and they're not going to get it. We have to stop and give it to them. You know, we only get to keep it by giving it away, and just phoning it in and just texting it in doesn't cut it, you know. I mean, sometimes we need to be available for people, and that costs time. All these little commitments, time and energy, you know, over and over and over. It's huge. It all adds up to that, you know. And people like, I think ever since, and I credit it to the Step Working Guide, this book, that many times people think that, you know, because they don't have their doctorate and their PhD in recovery yet, and knowing everything perfectly, that they're not the ones qualified to stop and sit out there and talk to the newcomers after the meeting. And so we're selfish with our time out there, you know. Part of it because a lot of times we don't want to get too close to people, because we know there's a lot of people are only here for a minute, you know. Waste your time on this guy. I mean, I'll tell you, most of the time I'm wrong about who I think is going to stay and who's not going to. I mean, and sometimes, you know, I still look at people like, oh, this fucking joker's not going to be around very long, you know. And here he is. How many? You just celebrated 2 years, right?
2, baby.
Yesterday?
Third.
The 3rd.
Nice.
Yeah, 2 years celebrated. When's the cake? When are we having the
We're
cake?
doing it on Saturday.
Oh, well, guess what? I ain't going to be here. I'm too selfish. I'll be in Utah. You can talk to my manager. I got a house to build. Do that shit during the week, and we can probably do some business. But anyway, yeah, it's a 4-day weekend for me too. So yeah, I'm not giving that up. Got work to do. But all that stuff, I mean, selfish with our time is, and when it all boils down to it, time is the most expensive thing we got. Once we give it, we ain't never getting it back. You know, it doesn't come back, you know, but we got to be a good steward of it, right? So, you know, I am in no immediate threat of ever becoming too selfless. I mean, that is probably one area of my fiber that I could try and aspire to do as much as I possibly could. and I don't even think I'm ever going to pass the break-even point. I just don't. There's just way too much selfishness in me to get past that point. But every little bit that I push to sit there and make that one more relationship, that one more connection with that one more person, and add that one more guy to my list of spam texting in the morning, and getting back to most everybody too. I mean, dude, I got like 50 people in this thing now, that I'm, and it is a bit, yeah, it don't take much to scroll back down and send this stuff to everybody. But you know what? There's some mornings where like over half of everybody does chime back in and say something, and I don't want to be the guy that just leaves everybody hanging. So it's important that we take that little time and that energy to send that stuff back, and honestly, at work, it's easy for me because I got a kick butt job where I don't have it too hard. But where the selfless part comes in is when everybody chimes in on a weekend and I'm up there in Utah trying to do my thing. I pick up my phone 3 times a day up there, in the morning, in the afternoon, at lunch, and at dinner, and I do try to reply to everybody that gets to me there. But the time up there, I feel that time, because when I'm up there, man, I'm trying to get this house built. And it's a tick, 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 tick. And believe me, the selfish part of me is like, unplug it, shut that thing don't even worry about it, pick it back up Sunday when you're heading back into town. But the push for me is to respond. And man, I think one of the worst things that people do in Narcotics Anonymous is put their name on a fucking phone list and not return the messages and not respond to the text. Whether it's just, it doesn't take much to do a little thumbs up, to a little something to acknowledge that people throw something at us. But when we just scroll by and ignore it, and when it just takes literally maybe a second and a half, a nanosecond to just throw that, it's like on Facebook, people want to see the likes, right? It makes people feel good when they got a bunch of likes on something like that. And what do we want to do? Fuck that guy. Right? We do this little, he's got enough people liking his stuff. And we get selfish with little things like that. And man, I don't know if you're like me, man, but when I did do sports in school, I never had anybody in the damn stands cheering me on and rooting me on or whatever. I was there alone most of the time. And I think a lot of us in recovery didn't necessarily have the most, supportive family life that was backing us. And so we do help each other, boost each other's confidence. And, long before we're sponsoring people, we're a cheerleader to each other. And just giving each other some kind of positive input, a little encouragement, a little blip here and there, man, it makes all the difference in the end of the day, I think, as human beings for us around here. So, what was I on 3? What did I do to cause harm intentionally or unintentionally? Was my selfishness in this area? Usually it was unintentionally, but I didn't really care too much, right? Which insecurities caused me to act this way? Financial, material, social, sex, or emotionally? Selfish with my money, selfish with my time. Emotionally, in the giving area. But I'm just throwing it out there. These questions fit a lot of different situations. But, if we have difficulty with this, if you have a spouse, just ask your spouse where you're selfish, and they'll be happy to point it out for you, won't they, Adam? That they'll be glad to be of service in that department. If you don't have a spouse and you're lucky enough to have your mom still around, you could ask your mom. Your mom could help you too, and we are each other's eyes and ears around here too. So it's not a bad thing to console other friends in recovery when it comes to this kind of stuff, because sometimes we don't see it. We're oblivious to it, especially when we've been living this way for a lot of years. So we don't even see our own bullshit coming. So what do you think we close this thing up tonight? Does anybody have anything they want to share about tonight?
No, we got homework.
You got homework to finish up?
Yep.
and that's pretty easy stuff to do. So next week, to make sure you have all those 5. Next week, we're going to be we're going to talk about the 5th step, and we're just going to wrap up the sex, shame, and guilt section, which I don't think any of us are going to have any problem coming up with, unlimited amounts of those. Many of us, and it doesn't say top 5 on this one, by the way, either, because if you're like me, I was a definite overachiever in that area. So I'm just grateful I didn't grow up on a farm. It would have been even longer. So many of us have said, lies, guide us in our recoveries, and show us how to live. Clean, keep coming back, it works. See you guys.